So as we approach the first developer livestream of Season 2 of Diablo 4, I wanted to go over one very important thing that I think the developers of Diablo 4 should look into doing. Now to start off, I'm somebody that's not as down on Diablo 4 as a lot of other people are. I think Diablo 4 is a really good foundation for an ARPG that's going to be a live service game and is going to be continuously updated over the seasons and future expansions. I think even when comparing Diablo 4 to a lot of other games in early access or on official release, I think it's still probably the best foundation of a game compared to most other ARPGs as well. But I know there's a lot of the community that is much more down on the game than I am, and I don't think there's a fix that the developers at Diablo 4 can come out and do that's going to quickly turn a lot of people from being down on the game to being super positive on the game. I think that's primarily just going to come from future updates, new seasons, new expansions, and more quality of life and changes. But I do think there's one thing that the developers can do that would actually drive a lot of positivity for Diablo 4 and would give people a lot more hope in the future of the game, and that's a roadmap. And the main reason I want to talk about a roadmap for Diablo 4 is because another Blizzard game has received a ton of positive community sentiment because they started releasing a roadmap, and that's World of Warcraft. Now, this isn't the first game for Blizzard that's had roadmaps. I know Hearthstone has had them in the past. I know Overwatch 2 has had them and continues to have them, but I think the World of Warcraft roadmap for Dragonflight has probably been one of the most well-received updates to how developers talk to players inside the entirety of Blizzard. And if you don't know what this is, basically at the start of the most recent World of Warcraft expansion, which is Dragonflight, they released a roadmap of everything we could expect for the first year of this expansion. And not only has this roadmap been incredibly well received, but it's also coincided with a lot quicker of updates and a lot more positivity around the game in general, because we know the general content we're going to be getting with every new update, and we know a general time period we're going to be getting them. And I think something like this would work perfectly with Diablo 4, because first, it would give us a time period of when we're getting updates, especially a lot of those quality of life updates, balance changes, and system overhauls that we're expecting into the future of Diablo 4, but it would also give us a general outline of the content we can expect for future seasons, because the content of future seasons is something that a lot of players for Diablo 4 right now basically have no idea of what we're going to be getting and have been pretty down because season 1 was such a light season. So for instance, when looking at something like the World of Warcraft roadmap, when it first came out, it wasn't super specific. For instance, for season 2 of Dragonflight, it would say things like we'd get a new zone, new raid, new PvP season, new Mythic Plus dungeon pool, profession updates, and user interface improvements. This is a bunch of stuff that we would fully expect to be getting, and there's not a ton of specifics in this, but it gives us a good outline of what we're going to be getting. And then the smaller patches in between the seasons, we would also be getting time periods. So for instance, 10.0.5 you would get in the winter, 10.0.7 we would be getting in the spring. So a general time period for when we're getting new updates with a general outline of the content that you would be getting in those updates. So to bring this back to Diablo 4 and why I think this would work so well with Diablo 4 is because we actually already know of a ton of additions and quality of life features we're going to be getting later down the road in Diablo 4. We already have a bunch of quality of life we know we're getting in season 2, and the developers have actually already told us a bunch of quality of life features and fixes we're getting with season 3 as well, and some content. So adding a roadmap like the WoW roadmap for Diablo 4, we would have outlines to show what we're getting when we're getting it, which would generally help just a lot of the player base, because a lot of the player base also doesn't know about a bunch of the stuff that's already been announced. Like, we got a bunch of content and quality of life announcements for season 2 from their initial reveal of it. So this would be on the season 2 part of the roadmap, and they would have a general outline of new quality of life and new content coming to the game that they could have released before we actually got the full reveal of season 2. Then we could go up into, say, season 3, and they could have a general overview. So for instance, we know for season 3 we're getting a kind of overhaul to the stash system of the game. We know we're getting more stash tabs and some amount of overhaul to that. We know we're also getting leaderboard leaderboards added in Season 3, and we also know there's going to be a new type of endgame system that ties directly into the leaderboards for Season 3. A lot of people, including myself, think this is going to be some type of greater rift system from Diablo 3, but if you ask a lot of players of Diablo 4, they probably don't know that's coming with Season 3, and if they just made a roadmap, outlined all of this stuff, there would probably be a lot more positive sentiment for Diablo 4's future. But not only would it create some additional positive sentiment for the future of the game, but it would also help players to give criticism to the game much more effectively to actually tell developers what they want without it being things that the developers have already said they're working on and have given us a general date for them coming to the game. Like how I mentioned with Season 3, we know we're getting leaderboards, we know they're overhauling the stash system, but I still see on the forums and Reddit tons of posts over the weeks and months specifically talking about things like leaderboards and about stash issues. And if much more players knew that these things are already being worked on and are already slated for Season 3, they could give criticism on other pieces of the game that aren't things that the developers have told us they're currently working on. Because if you want Diablo 4 to just be better and you want to give criticism on the things that you think need change, it's much better to give that feedback on things that developers haven't told us are being released at a certain point and to do it on other things. That'll just generally make the game better and give you a much higher chance to actually get new things changed and fixed. And I know this has been a bit more of a rambly video, but I do think a roadmap would be a big addition to the future of Diablo 4, and this would also tie into something that the developers of Diablo 4 have said they want to make sure to do in the future, because we got that big patch that nerfed basically everything that was probably one of the big reasons why there's such a negative sentiment around Diablo 4 still, and if you put that all into a roadmap, it eases a lot of that tension for players. So for a roadmap, you could start on, say, Season 2, put a bunch of the information outlined, then you could have, say, a mid-season patch that adds more quality of life, maybe more content, more balanced features, and then you could also detail Season 3 and then the Season 3 mid-patch. And this will also allow the developers to actually tell the players what their update cadence is going to be. Because say for Season 1, we didn't know how we were going to get additional patches or updates during the season. So this could also help to outline when we're actually going to be getting updates and how many updates we're going to be getting in the middle of a season. So I just think adding a roadmap could have a bunch of big positives for Diablo 4, and it will just allow the developers to give more communication to the players for what we're getting in future updates and when we're getting them. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.